Today I'm going to show you guys how to install a motion sensor for any kind of lighting. For me, I'm going to be doing it in my garage. And I'm doing this in order to make it so when I leave my garage out the garage door and I close the garage door, I don't have to actually turn the light back off. It goes off automatically. Okay, so for materials, what I have for this job is the sensor switch itself, which gets mounted to the ceiling. It comes with the wire nuts and mounting screws. This device is not very expensive. I think I got it on Amazon for right around $30. The next thing is a circular old work box. I think that ran me about $3 at Lowe's. And then a little bit of 12 gauge, 2-wire. All right, so these are the tools that you will need for this job. Razor knife, drywall saw, tape measure, lineman pliers, voltage tester, wire strippers, screwdriver, 11-in-1 screwdriver if you've got it, or you can just have a normal Phillips and flathead screwdriver, as well as a pencil, headlamp so you can see in the dark, and then safety glasses. You don't need it, but highly recommend also having a stud finder so you know if your box is going to be in the right place. And then if you have it, a 4/8 hole saw bit will perfectly cut out the shape for that box. And obviously if you have that, you need to drill with it. So before we actually start this job, we're going to look at the directions here. And note, this is very important when you're actually purchasing a motion sensor, is if you do not get one that is 120 volt and you buy one that is low voltage, you're not going to be able to use it unless you have a transformer, and that takes extra steps. This is very simple. We want it to be 120 volts so that we don't have to put in a transformer and run low voltage wire. The next thing of importance to note is it's designed for a 12 to 18 foot mounting height. So we're going to make sure that our ceiling is not any higher than 18 foot. And no lower than 12 foot. The next thing to note is that it has a 12 to 24 foot radial coverage. You can see here on the little diagram that from the center of the motion sensor out, it's 24 foot. So we're going to make sure that our room is the correct size for that. Other things to note for the future, when you're actually wiring it, is that we don't want it to be within 3 feet of any fluorescent ballasts and HVAC ducts, and at least 4 foot away from any incandescent fixtures and HVAC diffusers. And then when wiring it up, the wire coming into the box that would normally power the lights is going to be on our black. And then the one that's actually going to leave the motion sensor and go to the lights after that is going to be the red wire. And then our white is just going to go to our neutral and carry on to our lights as normal. So because the coverage area in our instructions determined a couple critical factors for us, 26 feet long and then 9 foot high. And that could be a problem because it's designed for a 12 to 18 foot mounting height, but I'm going to take a guess and say that we'll probably be fine at 9 foot. So now that we determined that our motion sensor can basically go anywhere in this room, we now need to actually choose the position that we want it to go. So I marked out the lights and how far away they are from each other to try and get a good estimate of where I actually want to put this. And also, it should be in consideration where the wire is coming from. And I know that my wire that powers these lights comes from here, and it goes to a switch that is over here. Don't ask me why they did it this way. And then it daisy chains to these other lights. So what I need to do is I need to put the motion sensor between the switch over here and this light in order to kick all 3 of them on when it detects motion. So what I'm probably going to do is I'm going to end up putting the motion sensor right here in between these 2 lights. So I know that I want to put the motion sensor here because in my attic, I know that I can take this wire out that comes from our switch and wire it directly into here, and then have a wire running from this motion sensor over to this light, and then it will go over to this light again. All right, so now that we know where we want our motion sensor, now the next step is actually getting the hole in the ceiling and running the wire. So I'm simply going to measure from one light to the next. I know it's about 7 foot. Yeah, almost exactly 7 foot. So half of 7 foot is going to be 42 inches. So we need a mark right there. I'm just going to make a small mark in case I need to erase it, because now I need to go the width of the garage. And I know our garage is 14 feet wide. 7 feet is our center. That's super close, right there. Right where our mark needs to go. Okay, so now that we have our X marked out, we just want to take our stud finder and make sure that there's no studs in the way of our box. So it looks like we have one right here. It's probably a truss. So just to make sure that we won't hit, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come directly to where the box edge should be and where the truss is. So the truss is right there, right about there. Our box is 3 1/4 inches in diameter, so the radius of it is 1 5/8. Quick measurement, and we have about 2 1/2 inches to play with. So should fit in there perfectly fine. Okay, so you can see our little mark that we have there. Now what you could do is you could take a measurement and make this exactly perfectly in the middle, or you could do what I do and I just put the box roughly right in the middle. And then what you're gonna do is you're gonna scribe the outside of the box around the edges, and that'll give you where you need to cut out. So if you are super picky and you want the box exactly in the center, what you do is you measure it across like this. You get the diameter of the bottom of the box. So for us, it's gonna be about 3 1/4. And then you can measure 3 1/4 up on the ceiling and mark it out that way. You're gonna take your 3 1/4 and you're gonna divide that by 2, which gives you 1 5/8. So we will put our tape measure here. We'll go 1 5/8, put a mark, and then the other way, 1 5/8, put a mark. And that should be almost exactly center. We put our box up here, we can see those marks. Make sure that it is directly in the center there. We are going to take our pencil and mark this out. All right, so that first outline came out a little bit crappy, so I'm just remarking it now. To get it even more in the center. And that is much better. That is almost perfect. Now we can take our box and kind of put it the other way and finish out our outline like so. So we have our box marked out. First thing I'm going to try is to cut it out with a jab saw or drywall knife, just to prove the concept. See if you can actually do it. I've never actually tried this before. Now you don't want to just push it up in, because you might actually push the whole drywall in, so I like to tap it, kind of push it in there a little bit at a time. Give it a wiggle, now we're in. Doing a good job. Now what I'll do is I'll note the edges around where it's tight, and I'll just shave them up a little bit. So this edge right here is tight. It's tight. Right here, tight. Get closer. Still tight on here. Try it again. We are basically there. Now all we have to do is cut out the grooves for our little wings here. Same concept, take pencil, mark it out. Right. Got our marks. Cut those out. Important thing about using a drywall knife is let the knife do the work. You're not really trying to push it. It's more about speed, you know, it's like a saw. So once we move these wings out of the way, that box will slide right up in there. I'm comfortable just turning off the switch because there's nobody else home that'll turn the switch on, but you may want to actually shut off your breaker to ensure that nobody's gonna come along and turn on that switch when you're working on this circuit. Okay, so this is not a video about running wire, but I figured I'd show this to you guys. So here we have a junction box where our light switch power actually comes in, and that it's currently off, but that means our power is coming into this box. And our first light is over there, and our motion sensor is like right in there, right about there. So all I did was I removed the wire that went from this junction box to that light, and now I have it just running right there to that. And so I'm gonna make just a short little piece that goes from here over to our power, put it all in this junction box, and that'll be good to go. So I just rewired that junction box, so now we have our power that goes to our motion sensor, which is right about there, and then our load that goes over to our first light. So we have our two wires coming in for our motion sensor. Now what we have to do is prep the box so that we can put the wires into the box and then easily install the motion sensor. So to prep this box, all we're gonna do is we know we're gonna have two wires coming in to one side, so we're just going to pop these in. That way, when I go to feed the wire in, it comes up in here a lot easier. Also, while we're here, we might as well unscrew these wings so that the wings are not in the way when we go to put the box up into the ceiling. So now that we have our box ready to go, we're gonna take our razor knife, get the wire, just like that. Take this sheeting off. Take a little bit more of this, so it's easier to work with. And now I'm gonna feed our wire into our box. 1, 2. Make sure that they're coming all the way through. Okay, so now our box is basically ready to go. Now the next step is to actually seat the box up in the ceiling. Gonna get our wings in a position where they're not in the way. Didn't account for this, but even with our cutouts, our wings are still gonna be in the way. So, no big deal. Just gonna mark where the wings are. One right here. There's no way to go with that wing right there. So let's mark it out. One right there. On this side. Without cutting these wires, I'm just gonna cut out some more of this. One. And look at that. Like a glove. Fits really good. Now that we have our box up in here, we go ahead and tighten down these wings. All right, our box is in, pretty good and tight. Wait them up. Okay, so like I explained before, we're gonna just connect our white wires together, wire nut them. We're gonna connect our ground together, keep those going. And then we need to figure out which one of these is going to be our line and our load. And our line will be going to the black and our load will be going to the red. Okay, so with our power turned on, this one, that one will be our line. Okay, so I turn the power back off, just gonna make sure, all good. So now what I'm gonna do, I want to kind of get our wires organized in here. And then I'm gonna find them a home in the box. Like that. Get them even. So get the wires, give them a couple twists with the lineman's pliers. Just cut off the end. That almost acts as like a weld when you cut it. Wired out those. I'm going to do the same thing with our neutral wires. Okay, so now I'm going to do our neutral. Those wires together. Give them a twist. off the very end. You can see that our stranded that connects to our motion sensor doesn't really want to stay. But I will ensure that it does when I put on this wire nut. Now our black wire goes to our line. Red wire goes to our load. Load just means anything downstream of the circuit. Now, go ahead and stuff these up in there in an organized fashion. The next thing is going to be to install this plate that our sensor actually mounts on. Okay, so now that we have everything installed, now we're gonna adjust our settings on here and then pop it up into the housing. Okay, so looking here back at the directions again, we can see that we can set time preferences, we can set sensitivity, and then ambient light level. So for us, we want it to be about 10 minutes. So as you can see here, all you do is you put the arrow to 10. Okay, the next thing is sensitivity. So how sensitive it is to when something moves. And the last thing here is the ambient light knob. So for me, this doesn't really make a big difference because the garage is dark pretty much all the time. Okay, so now the last thing to do is to just feed our rest of our wires up into our box. Get in there. And then twist it into place. Now we gotta test it out. Okay, so hit the switch, lights kick on, and they will kick off in 5 minutes. All right, so with that all said and done, we have a good result. Looks clean, looks professional. If you don't have the tools or the know-how or the time, just pay a professional to come and do this. It's a pretty quick and easy job, especially if you don't have experience running wires through your ceilings, especially if they're insulated ceilings. There's a lot of variables that can make this job go from easy to pain in the butt. The specialty materials that I use for this, I will put in the description. That way you can find them. I don't make any money off it, but if it helps you out, it's good. All right, thanks for watching.